From the moment Ms. Alvarez stepped into room 2B that Monday morning, she felt the strange heaviness in the air. It wasn't the weather, though thick gray clouds pressed down on the city like a warning. It wasn't the students either, not entirely. It was something else, something she couldn't quite name. A quiet intuition, a gentle tug in her chest, the kind she had learned never to ignore. She dropped her bag on the desk and scanned the room. 23 children, all in their usual seats, all with their usual level of morning energy, except for one. Layla. The little girl sat in the back corner, alone as always, hugging her backpack tightly against her chest. Her dark hair hung in front of her face, her small shoulders slightly hunched, as though she were trying to shrink herself into the chair. Ms. Alvarez had seen this posture before. She taught long enough to recognize when a child was carrying more than she could say out loud. But today felt different, heavier. "Good morning, class," she said with forced cheerfulness. Most of the kids responded with the usual mix of enthusiasm and groans. Layla whispered her greeting so softly that even the girl next to her didn't hear it. By lunchtime, the uneasy feeling had only grown stronger. The cafeteria buzzed with noise, trays clattering, children laughing, the chaotic orchestra of a normal school day. But in the far corner, at the same table she chose every day, sat Layla again. Alone. Ms. Alvarez paused at the doorway, watching. The other kids opened colorful lunchboxes and peeling oranges, laughing over juice boxes and trading snacks. But Layla placed a tiny dented metal lunchbox on the table. She opened it slowly, with almost ceremonial care, revealing the same thing Ms. Alvarez had seen every single day since September. Plain white rice. Nothing else. No fruit. No vegetables. No protein. No seasoning. Just rice. At first, Ms. Alvarez had assumed it was a cultural meal, simple, traditional, maybe even comforting. Many families packed meals like that. But with each passing week, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Now, as she watched from across the cafeteria, something new struck her. The way Layla ate. She didn't dig in the way hungry kids usually do. She didn't shovel big bites. She didn't even eat steadily. Instead, she lifted tiny spoonfuls, one at a time, chewing slowly, deliberately. She paused between each bite. She looked at the rice as though calculating something very important. And halfway through the meal, she stopped altogether and closed the lunchbox. Every day, exactly half. Ms. Alvarez felt her chest tighten. She walked over slowly, trying to sound casual. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, kneeling beside the table. "Not hungry today?" Layla shook her head gently. "I'm okay, ma'am." "You sure? You barely ate." I get full fast." Her voice wavered, just slightly, but enough for Ms. Alvarez to hear it. The tremor of a practiced lie. She placed a hand on the table. "You know, if you ever need anything at all, you can talk to me. That's what teachers are for." Layla nodded, offering the faintest smile. "Yes, ma'am." But she didn't open the lunchbox again. That night, Ms. Alvarez couldn't sleep. She replayed the moment in the cafeteria over and over, trying to understand the lingering ache she felt in her stomach. Something was wrong. Something was deeply, painfully wrong. It wasn't just the rice. It was the way the child protected it. The way she guarded it. The way she rationed it like a soldier in a battlefield unsure when the next supply line would arrive. The next day, the rain came. Hard, cold sheets of rain that hammered the school roof like 1,000 grieving fists. Students rushed out at dismissal, holding jackets over their heads. Parents ran from cars with umbrellas. The chaos was loud and frantic. But at the very center of it stood Layla. Drenched, tiny drops sliding off her hair and soaking her sweater. No umbrella, no parent, just her small backpack, clutched tight against her chest. "Layla!" Ms. Alvarez hurried toward her. "Sweetheart, where's your mom?" "She's working," the girl whispered. "Well, who's picking you up today?" "I don't know." Her voice was so soft, it was nearly swallowed by the storm. Suddenly, a neighbor appeared out of breath, calling, "I'm so sorry. Zara asked me last minute to grab her. Things have been chaotic." Chaotic. The word stabbed deeper than intended. Ms. Alvarez watched them leave, that same heavy feeling gripping her like a warning bell no one else could hear. That night, she still couldn't shake the unease. And the next day, when she found the small dented lunchbox left behind on the table, everything changed. The classroom was unusually quiet that afternoon. Rain still tapped against the windows, soft and rhythmic, as though the sky had exhausted itself and was now merely whispering. Students rushed out after the final bell, leaving scattered pencils, forgotten jackets, and half-finished drawings behind. Ms. Alvarez walked through the aisles, picking up papers and straightening chairs like she always did. It was a peaceful ritual, one that helped her wind down after chaotic school days. Then she saw it. On the corner desk by the window sat a small dented metal lunchbox. Layla's. Ms. Alvarez froze in place, her hand hovering above a stack of workbooks. The moment stretched long and heavy. Something inside her whispered, "Open it." She approached slowly, almost reverently. The lunchbox looked older in the stillness of the empty room. Scratched edges, faded paint, a loose hinge. She picked it up gently, surprised by how light it was, as though it held more air than food. She must have forgotten it, she murmured to herself. I'll just put it aside so she gets it tomorrow. She carried it to her desk, intending to place it in the lost and found bin. But her fingers paused on the latch. A familiar unease slithered back into her chest. The same unease she'd felt watching Layla ration her lunch. Watching her stand alone in the rain. Watching her force a smile whenever anyone asked if she was okay. Ms. Alvarez drew a slow breath and opened the lunchbox. Half the rice was still inside, cold and clumped from the morning. But that wasn't what made her heart stop. Under the lunch container was a small folded paper note. Her fingers shook as she pulled it out. The handwriting was tiny, uneven, the letters trembling across the page as though written by someone in a rush or in fear. She opened it, and the words crashed into her like a tidal wave. Eat half, leave half for Mama. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. Ms. Alvarez staggered back so suddenly her chair rolled behind her, bumping the wall. Her hand flew to her mouth, stifling a sound that was half gasp, half sob. No, oh God, no. She read the note again, each word slicing deeper. Eat half, leave half for Mama. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. Her vision blurred. Tears welled so fast she couldn't stop them. She pressed a hand over her trembling mouth and tried to steady herself. This wasn't hunger. This wasn't poverty. This was starvation. A mother starving so her daughter could eat half a cup of plain rice. She sank into her chair, gripping the lunchbox like it was the most fragile thing in the universe. The room felt colder, darker, smaller. How long? She whispered. How long has this been happening? The question echoed through the classroom, unanswered. A dozen memories flashed through her mind. Moments she had overlooked, signs she had misread. Layla wearing the same sweater every day. The exhaustion in her eyes. The way she flinched when someone called her name too loudly. The way she guarded her lunchbox like it contained gold. Ms. Alvarez's breath hitched. I should have asked sooner, she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. I should have seen it. A soft knock startled her. She quickly wiped her face as Mr. Patel, the math teacher from next door, poked his head in. Everything okay? He asked gently. She swallowed, forcing her voice to be steady. Yes, just finishing up. He hesitated, sensing something was off, but nodded. All right, lock up when you're done. When he left, Ms. Alvarez looked again at the note trembling in her hands. This isn't something I can ignore, she murmured. I can't let her go home hungry. I can't let her mother starve. She stood abruptly, heart pounding now with a new kind of urgency. A fierce protective instinct she hadn't felt in years. She slipped the note back into the lunchbox, closed it, and tucked it carefully into her bag. I'm going to that home tonight, she decided. If this family is in trouble, they won't face it alone. The school hallways were nearly empty as she walked out, lunchbox clutched in her hands. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, humming softly. Outside, the rain had turned to a misty drizzle. The sky was still gray, but in a quieter, sadder way. Ms. Alvarez stepped into the parking lot and looked toward the street where she had last seen Layla standing in the storm. Her jaw tightened. "I'm not letting this child slip through the cracks," she whispered. "Not on my watch." She unlocked her car, placed the lunchbox gently on the passenger seat, and took one last steadying breath. Tonight, she would learn how deep this story went. Tonight, she would learn what no one else had bothered to see. Tonight, everything would change. By the time Ms. Alvarez pulled into the narrow street, printed on Layla's emergency contact form, dusk had already swallowed the neighborhood. Rows of old brick apartments leaned against each other like exhausted workers at the end of a long shift. Dim streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on cracked sidewalks. Everything felt tired here. Buildings, streets, even the wind. She parked her car and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Her heart thudded in her chest, loud enough that she could hear it. "What if I'm overstepping?" she whispered to herself. "What if they think I'm intruding?" But the image of the note in her bag crushed all hesitation. "Eat half, leave half for Mama." She closed her eyes tightly, inhaling shaky breath. "I can't ignore this," she murmured. "Not when a child is hungry. Not when a mother is starving." Stepping out, she walked toward the building entrance. Water dripped from the worn-out gutters, tapping the concrete like a slow countdown. The hallway smelled faintly of mildew and secondhand smoke. She checked the apartment number again. 3C. Her footsteps echoed as she climbed the stairs. The higher she went, the quieter the building became. On the third floor, she paused before the door. The wooden frame was chipped, the number 3C barely hanging on by a single nail. She raised her hand to knock, but stopped when she heard something inside. A soft, muffled sound. A whimper, then silence. Her heartbeat quickened. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. "Maybe they're not home," she whispered. But just as she began to step back, she heard shuffling inside, quick, nervous footsteps, and then a small click as someone slid the chain lock. The door opened 3 inches, and a pair of wide, frightened eyes peeked through the gap. Layla. When she recognized her teacher, her eyes widened even more. "Ms. Alvarez?" she whispered, barely audible. "Hi, sweetheart," Ms. Alvarez said softly, careful not to sound threatening. I wanted to return something you forgot today." She held up the lunchbox. Layla stared at it as though it were a secret exposed under bright light. Her tiny fingers tightened around the edge of the door. Sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to forget it." "It's okay," Ms. Alvarez said gently. May I come in for a moment?" Instant fear shot across the girl's face. She looked back into the apartment, glanced at her teacher again, and whispered, "Mama is tired. I won't stay long," the teacher assured her. "I just want to make sure everything is all right." Layla hesitated long enough that Ms. Alvarez's heart sank. Something wasn't right. Finally, a weak voice came from inside. "Layla, siapa itu?" It was her mother. Layla answered softly in their language, and after a moment, the door opened fully. Zara stood there. She looked much younger than Ms. Alvarez expected, probably no older than 30. Her face was beautiful but tired, deeply, crushingly tired. Her cheekbones were sharp, her eyes sunken, her lips pale. She held a dish towel in one hand, her knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. "Good evening," she said with an apologetic bow of her head. "I'm sorry. The house is messy." Ms. Alvarez smiled gently. "I'm not here to judge. I just wanted to bring back something Layla left in the classroom." She held out the lunchbox. Zara's eyes flickered to it, and in that second, Ms. Alvarez saw something. Shame, worry, and something even heavier, relief? No, desperation. "Please," Zara said softly, stepping aside. "Come in." The apartment was small, barely furnished. A single couch with worn fabric. A tiny table with 2 mismatched chairs. A toddler, maybe 3 or 4 years old, slept on the floor, wrapped not in a blanket but in what looked like a repurposed curtain. Ms. Alvarez's breath caught. Zara noticed her stare. Her face flushed. "We sold the bedding," she said quietly. "For rent." She forced a smile that broke halfway through. "It's temporary." Ms. Alvarez nodded slowly, her heart breaking piece by piece. "I understand," she whispered. "And thank you for letting me in." Zara sat at the table, exhaustion radiating from her. "I know why you came," she murmured. "You saw the note, didn't you?" Ms. Alvarez swallowed hard, nodding. Zara covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders shook. "I didn't want her to worry," she choked out. "But she still wrote it." Layla rushed to her mother's side. "Mama, don't cry. Please don't cry." Zara pulled her close. "I'm sorry, baby. Mama is trying. I promise I'm trying." Ms. Alvarez stepped forward. "You don't have to do this alone." Zara looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. "We have no one," she whispered. "You have me," Ms. Alvarez said, firm, steady, certain. "From now on, you have me." In that small, dim apartment something shifted. A connection formed. Promise was made. And for the first time in months, Zara didn't feel entirely alone. The rain had eased by the time Ms. Alvarez stepped out of the apartment complex, but the cold wind still sliced against her skin. She pulled her scarf tighter and stood beneath a flickering street lamp, letting the weight of everything she had just witnessed settle into her bones. She inhaled shakily. She had entered that apartment as a worried teacher. She was leaving it as something else entirely, someone who had made a silent promise she could not break. Her phone buzzed. A text from the school group chat. "Reminder, PTA meeting tomorrow. Please bring agenda items." Ms. Alvarez stared at the message, her spine stiffening. Agenda items. Oh, she had one. She turned toward her car, soaked shoes splashing through puddles. As she drove home, her thoughts spun like frantic gears, trying to fit the pieces of a plan together. One that could help the family without exposing them. She didn't sleep much that night. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Layla's trembling lips, the toddler wrapped in a curtain, the empty fridge, and that note. "Eat half, leave half for Mama." Those 4 words had changed everything. The next morning, Ms. Alvarez arrived early at school. The hallways were still quiet, the lights just warming up. She set her bag down, rolled up her sleeves, and marched into the teacher's lounge with a resolve she hadn't felt in years. Inside, Mr. Kim was fixing the coffee machine. "Morning," he said without looking up. "You're here early. Big day," she muttered, pouring herself a cup. He glanced at her over his glasses. "You look like you slept inside a tornado." "Thanks," she said dryly. Before he could pry further, the door swung open. Mrs. Patterson, the PTA president, breezed in with her usual energetic stride. "Morning, everyone. Meeting starts in an hour. We'll need volunteers for—" "I have an item to add," Ms. Alvarez cut in. The woman paused mid-sentence. "Oh? What kind?" Ms. Alvarez took a breath. "A family emergency fund. Discreet, teacher-managed, and designed to help students in crisis." Mrs. Patterson blinked. "That's a big proposal." "It's necessary," Ms. Alvarez replied firmly. The PTA president studied her face. The dark circles, the stern expression, the deep seriousness. Something in her softened. "We can discuss it," she said gently. "You'll introduce it?" "Yes." "And it's urgent?" "Very." Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. "Then it's going first on the agenda." When the meeting began, the room filled with parents, teachers, and staff. Conversations buzzed. Coffee cups clinked. Papers rustled. But Ms. Alvarez sat at the table's center, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned pale. When her turn came, she rose. "I'd like to propose the creation of a confidential support program," she began. Her voice was calm, but inside her chest, her heart was pounding like a drum. "There are families in this school, right now, who are one crisis away from disaster. Some have no food. Some can't afford heat. Some children come to school hungry, pretending they're not. A murmur rippled across the room. Mrs. Beck, a longtime member, raised a hand. Do you have examples? Or is this hypothetical? Ms. Alvarez hesitated. She wasn't allowed to disclose specifics. She couldn't mention Layla. She couldn't risk humiliating Amal. But she needed them to understand. So she chose her words carefully. I know of a student who has been eating only plain white rice for lunch. Not because she wants to, because that's all there is. The room fell dead silent. Mr. Kim looked up sharply. Mrs. Patterson lowered her pen. A father in the back straightened in his seat. Ms. Alvarez continued, voice steady but trembling under the surface. Her mother hasn't eaten in days. They're close to eviction. They've sold nearly everything they own. And yet the little girl still comes to school every morning, smiling, trying to pretend nothing is wrong. Someone gasped softly. Someone else whispered, "Oh my God! I can't tell you names," Ms. Alvarez said. "But I can tell you this. If we don't help, that family will fall apart. And I won't stand by and let that happen." A heavy silence dominated the room. Then, slowly, Mrs. Patterson spoke. "What do you need?" Ms. Alvarez exhaled, relief washing over her. Food donations, gift cards, gently used clothing, emergency funds for rent support, volunteers to help assemble care packages, a small team to distribute them quietly. Confidentially? Someone asked. Yes, absolutely. Another parent raised a hand. How soon do you need this? A pause. Yesterday, Ms. Alvarez whispered. The room shifted. Something collective, something human. And without hesitation, the PTA president stood. Then let's get started. One by one, heads nodded. Hands raised. Offers poured in. I can donate groceries. I'll cover a utility bill. I have a contact at a local charity. I can help pack boxes. My company offers hardship grants. Let me check. Ms. Alvarez felt her throat tighten. She had expected pushback, doubt, delays. She had not expected this. When the meeting adjourned, parents were already forming groups, exchanging phone numbers, making plans. For the first time since reading that note, Ms. Alvarez felt hope. Quiet, tender, real. She stepped out into the hallway, letting the moment wash over her. But as she turned, she nearly collided with Principal Harris. He stared at her, arms crossed. A word. Her breath caught. Had she pushed too far? Of course, she said. He led her into his office, closed the door, and faced her with a stern expression. What exactly are you doing? He asked. Her heart raced. This was the part she hadn't planned for. This was a new storm brewing, and it was headed straight for her. The door clicked shut behind them, and the sound echoed in the small office like the closing of a vault. Ms. Alvarez stood still, her pulse thundering in her ears. Principal Harris walked slow circles around his desk before finally lowering himself into his chair. Hands folded, expression unreadable. She braced herself. He exhaled. You stirred up a storm today. Her stomach tightened. I did what needed to be done. That's not the question, he replied. The question is, do you understand what you've just gotten yourself into? Ms. Alvarez lifted her chin. I'm aware of the risks. Are you? He leaned forward, elbows on the desk. Because parents are already emailing. Staff members are talking. People want to know which student you were referring to, who's starving, who's days from eviction, who's in crisis. Her heart skipped painfully. I didn't name anyone. You didn't have to. His voice sharpened. This kind of story spreads fast. And if word gets out, if any parent starts guessing who the child is, this could become a district issue. And trust me, once the district gets involved, it's out of our hands. She swallowed. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need to know exactly what's happening. He paused. You're hiding something. Ms. Alvarez stiffened. I'm protecting a family. Protecting them by creating a program that could get us sued? Her breath hitched. Sued. Confidential support programs are tricky, the principal said, tapping his desk nervously. Distribute aid to the wrong family, and another could accuse us of favoritism. Someone could claim discrimination, or that we're misusing funds. If boundaries aren't clear, everything can collapse. She clenched her fists. Do you expect me to ignore what I saw? Pretend that little girl isn't sacrificing her meals? Principal Harris softened slightly. Look, I know your heart, Alvarez. You're one of the most dedicated teachers in this building. He rubbed his forehead. But you cannot carry this alone. If something goes wrong, you will take the fall. I'm not afraid of that, she whispered. Well, I am. His voice cracked. Just a little. You're valuable, and this could blow up. She hesitated. But the PDA approved it. Yes, because parents are kind. But kindness without structure becomes chaos. He sighed again. Tell me about the family. Off the record. She shook her head instantly. No. His eyebrows lifted. No. I gave them my word. He stared at her long and hard. You're willing to risk your job for them? Her throat tightened. I'm willing to risk more than that if it means a child gets to eat. The principal leaned back slowly, studying her with a complicated mix of frustration and admiration. You're impossible, he murmured. Then, to her shock, he stood up, closed the blinds, and lowered his voice. Listen carefully, he said. If you refuse to name the family, I can't officially approve your involvement. But, he hesitated, glancing toward the closed door. I also won't stand in your way. Ms. Alvarez blinked. What does that mean? It means, he whispered, do what you need to do, quietly, carefully, and don't put anything in writing. Her breath released in a rush she didn't realize she'd been holding. So, you won't stop me? I didn't say that. He cleared his throat. I said I won't see anything. For the first time since entering the office, Ms. Alvarez allowed herself to smile. Tiny, grateful, real. Thank you, she whispered. He waved a hand. This never happened. She nodded and slipped out of the office. Outside, the hallway bustled with students heading to lunch. The noise was loud, cheerful, chaotic. But amid the sea of movement, Ms. Alvarez spotted the small figure she was looking for. Layla, the little girl, stood by the water fountain, clutching her worn backpack, waiting for her class to finish washing hands. When she saw Ms. Alvarez, she waved timidly. The teacher approached slowly. How are you feeling today, sweetheart? Layla shrugged. Okay, but her eyes were tired. Too tired for a child her age. Did you eat breakfast? Ms. Alvarez asked. A little. What did you have? Rice, she murmured. Again, always rice. Ms. Alvarez bent down and adjusted the girl's backpack strap. Lunch is soon. Layla nodded. I brought my rice again. Ms. Alvarez swallowed the lump in her throat. Is your mama okay? Layla hesitated, then whispered. She fainted this morning. The word struck like a blow. What? Ms. Alvarez breathed. Did she fall? Is she hurt? She was just tired, Layla said quickly. She got up after a minute. I told her to rest more. A child telling her mother to rest. A child carrying burdens too heavy for her small shoulders. Ms. Alvarez steadied herself. Thank you for telling me, she said gently. You did the right thing. The bell rang, and Layla hurried to rejoin her class, waving again before disappearing into the cafeteria. Ms. Alvarez stood in the hallway, hands trembling. No more delays. No more waiting for committees or funds or processes. This family didn't need help next week. They needed it now. She pulled out her phone and dialed quickly. Hi, Mrs. Patterson, she said the moment the call connected. I need your help today. This afternoon. It can't wait. The PDA president paused. How urgent? Ms. Alvarez looked toward the cafeteria doors, where Layla had slipped inside. Life or death urgent, she whispered, and the mission truly began. By late afternoon, the school was emptying out. The sky outside had shifted into muted shades of winter gray, as if the world itself was bracing for something heavy. Ms. Alvarez waited in her classroom, pacing between the desks, checking her phone every few seconds. Finally, it buzzed. Mrs. Patterson, we're here. Ms. Alvarez grabbed her coat, stepped into the hallway, and hurried toward the lobby. Outside in the parking lot, the PDA president stood beside her SUV. The back hatch was open, revealing bags upon bags of groceries, toiletries, diapers, blankets, cleaning supplies, a small heater, and even a few wrapped boxes. A second car pulled in just as she approached, one of the dads from the PDA. He stepped out, popped his trunk, and revealed a stack of grocery store gift cards and a brand new backpack still wrapped in plastic. Ms. Alvarez blinked in surprise. "I wasn't expecting all this today." Mrs. Patterson shrugged, her eyes soft. "Parents didn't hesitate. The moment I sent the message, they started dropping things off. They trust you, you know. They know if you say a child needs help, it's real." The dad who had arrived leaned his elbows on the car roof. "We don't need to know the family's name. Just tell us where to drop this." Ms. Alvarez's throat tightened. She opened her mouth to speak, and froze when she saw a small figure standing across the parking lot. Layla. She wasn't supposed to still be here. Her mother usually picked her up early, but today she was alone, hugging her backpack close, eyes scanning the area nervously as if searching for someone. Ms. Alvarez excused herself and crossed the lot quickly. "Sweetheart, where's your mom?" Layla's voice shook. "She didn't come. I tried calling, but she didn't answer. I think she's sleeping again." That wasn't sleep. That was exhaustion. That was hunger. Ms. Alvarez placed a gentle hand on her back. "You're coming with me, okay? We're going to make sure she's all right." Layla nodded, small and frightened. Mrs. Patterson watched from afar, understanding instantly. She closed the SUV hatch and stepped toward them. "We'll follow you," she mouthed to the teacher. The drive to the apartment felt longer than usual. Layla sat in the passenger seat, legs swinging nervously, hands twisting in her lap. "Ms. Alvarez?" she whispered. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart. Are you mad at Mama?" Ms. Alvarez shook her head firmly. "Your mama is doing everything she can. She just needs a little help. That's all." Layla stared out the window, unsure whether to believe her. When they reached the building, Mrs. Patterson and the PDA dad parked behind them. They stayed a respectful distance away, waiting for Ms. Alvarez's signal. Layla led her teacher up the stairs. The hallway was dim. When they reached the door, the girl hesitated, then pushed it open. Inside, the toddler still slept on the couch under the curtain blanket. A pot of cold rice sat on the stove. And Amal, frail, pale, trembling, sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands, fighting to stay upright. "Mama!" Layla cried. Amal looked up slowly, trying to smile. "Habibti, you're home early." Ms. Alvarez knelt beside her. "Amal, you're not okay." Amal waved a weak hand. "Just tired. I was going to get up." "No," Ms. Alvarez said gently. "You were going to collapse." The mother's lips trembled. "I didn't want you to see this. But I did," the teacher whispered. "And I'm not leaving you like this." As if on cue, Mrs. Patterson entered quietly, carrying 2 bags. She paused in the doorway, eyes widening at the sight of the bare apartment. "May I come in?" Amal stiffened. No, please don't look at my home. It's not usually like." "It's okay," Mrs. Patterson said softly. "We're not here to judge you." She stepped inside and set the bags gently on the floor. Then the PDA dad entered too, carrying the heater. Then another parent came with blankets. Then another with groceries. Soon the small apartment was filled with quiet footsteps, soft voices, and the rustle of bags being opened. The air changed not with noise, but with warmth, with humanity. Amal covered her face with her hands. I can't accept this. I can't." Ms. Alvarez knelt beside her again. "This isn't charity. This is a community refusing to let you drown." Layla watched, eyes wide as the empty fridge slowly filled. Milk, vegetables, fruit, eggs, bread, cheese. The pantry was stocked with rice and beans and pasta. The living room gained pillows and a real blanket. The toddler was gently wrapped in a soft fleece someone had brought. and on the kitchen table someone placed a plain envelope. Ms. Alvarez slid it gently toward Amal. Open it. Inside were gift cards, emergency rent funds, and a note. For a mother who has fought too hard alone. Amal broke. She sobbed silently, shoulders shaking, hands trembling around the envelope. Mama, Layla whispered. It's okay. They're helping us. Amal pulled her into a crushing embrace. I'm sorry, Habibti. I'm so sorry you had to grow up so fast. Ms. Alvarez turned away, wiping her eyes. Later, when the parents left and the apartment was quiet again, Layla approached her teacher with a small wrapped box she found in one of the bags. Is this mine? She asked shyly. Ms. Alvarez knelt. Yes, sweetheart. Someone thought you deserved a real lunchbox. Layla unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a bright, sturdy lunchbox, blue with little stars, and a note taped inside the lid. You deserve to be full, brave girl. Layla looked up, eyes wide and watery. Did you write this? Ms. Alvarez shook her head softly. No, this came from all of us. But why? Ms. Alvarez pulled her into a gentle hug. Because you are loved. Because you matter. Because no child should ever feel hungry and alone. Layla buried her face in her shoulder. Amal watched from the table, tears tracking down her cheeks, whispering in disbelief. I don't know who helped us, but whoever it is saved my family. Ms. Alvarez didn't respond. She just held the child tighter, letting the moment settle like sunlight into a once dark room. And as she stood to leave, she paused in the doorway, heart full. She had promised she wouldn't walk away, and she hadn't. As the final echoes of the story fade, one truth lingers in the air like a warm afterglow. The reminder that kindness is never wasted, courage is never small, and every choice we make shapes a world someone else has to live in. If this journey moved you, even for a moment, then let this be the moment you carry forward something more than just a story. Let it be the reason you choose to do good, even when no one is watching. Because stories like this don't end when the screen goes dark. They continue with people like you, people who believe in justice, compassion, redemption, and second chances. If this episode touched your heart, if it made you rethink the way we treat each other, or if it reminded you of the kind of world we can build together, then don't let it stop here. Folded hands, give this video a like. It helps more people discover stories that matter. Speech balloon, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice adds power to the message. Bell, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter, the next twist, the next emotional punch that keeps this channel alive. And most importantly, thank you for watching, for feeling, and for being part of a community that still believes in humanity. Until the next story, stay kind, stay brave, and stay tuned.